He is a law practitioner and also a lecturer in the Faculty of Law, Benue State University, Makurdi. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right. So let's dive straight into the matter. First things first, what is the Nigerian Startup Act?
The Nigerian Startup Act is a law made by the federal government of Nigeria for the...
So what can you see is the difference between the startup and SMEs?
For us to know the difference, we must first know what startup is and what SMEs are. So, under the provision of the law, particularly Section 47 of the Nigerian Startup Act, it defines a startup as a company which is established in Nigeria for not more than 10 years or not for less than 10 years.
Okay.
Yes. And the company, its objective is basically concerned with development or creation of digital technology, innovative products, services, and processes.
Okay.
So it is basically concerned with digital technology. Now, SMEs, like small and medium-scale enterprises, these are, according to the Central Bank of Nigeria, these are companies that have the workforce of less than 300 individuals.
Okay.
So, now if you compare startup and SMEs, startup can be SMEs, but not all SMEs can be startup.
Okay.
A startup is concerned basically with a company that concerns digital technology.
Okay.
While SMEs can be any company, maybe a tailoring shop is an SME also. But when you talk about startup, you talk about digital technology.
Okay.
So the difference is that SMEs can be any company, including startup. As far as that startup does not have workforce more than 300, it can also be SME.
Okay.
So this is basically the difference between an SME and a startup.
Okay, so now what are the objectives of this particular act? Because it seems it's been interesting. People are so looking forward to it. So what are the objectives of the act?
Okay. The act itself provides for its objective, particularly under Section 1. Now, the objectives of the act, we can summarize them into 3. First, it is to provide a legal and institutional framework for the regulation of startup in Nigeria. Secondly, the act tries to provide a conducive atmosphere for the running of technology-based startup in Nigeria. And lastly, the act intends to position the Nigerian startup ecosystem to be the leading digital technology in the entirety of Africa. So this is intended to incentivize Nigerians to invest in this particular area.
Okay.
And also the government is going to help them so that they can build, Nigeria can grow up. Yes, Nigeria can grow up in terms of digital technology.
Okay, now let's look at the startup labeling process. Now, what are the requirements or eligibility for grants for the startups? Because we saw a section where they talk of labeling process.
Okay. Yes, for someone to be eligible to be given the status of a startup, now there are certain criteria set up by the law. One is that the company must be registered as a limited liability company. Yes, and must not be in existence for 10 years. It must be less than 10 years. Yes. And secondly, the company must be concerned with, that's its objective as contained in the memorandum of association, must concern basically the development, the promotion of digital technology, innovative product, services, or processes. Also, the company must be a Nigerian company, or it must have at least 1/3 shareholding to be Nigerians. So Now, initially we talked about the fact that only a limited liability company can be, But the law also allows for sole proprietorship or partnership to also be registered as startup. But they must also fulfill some other conditions like we earlier mentioned. And it is intended that they develop into or convert into a limited liability company within 6 months, otherwise they may lose their startup status.
Okay, well, it's getting very interesting here, but before we continue, we'll go on a very quick break. Well, we'll be back shortly. Welcome back from that break. If you're just joining us, it's Your Right on Benway Television, and we've been discussing Nigeria's Startup Act, and it's been really amazing here in the studio. Now, going forward, what are the procedures? Yes, what are the procedures for labeling a startup?
The procedure for labeling as a startup is done online.
Okay.
Now, the person can access the website of the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, which is the secretariat where is housed.
Yeah.
So you can access that website and then apply online. So by the application online, there are documents which you require for the person to attach, and mostly you must fulfill that eligibility status. That's criteria set up for somebody to be eligible for registering a startup. So that is basically how the procedure is.
Okay, now looking at some parts of the act, let's talk about the incentives. How has the law labeled incentives in this case?
Okay, when a company is established as a startup and is registered as a startup or granted the labeled as a startup. Now, there are certain incentives that the government, the Act provides, which can encourage such company. For instance, they talk about income tax.
Okay.
The company will be exempted from income tax. Okay. And also, the company will be entitled to tax relief as a pioneer company.
Okay.
And also, payment of capital gains tax is also exempted from the payment of capital gains tax for at least properties they acquire within 1 year, 24 months. So the law talks about the fact that that income tax, you are exempted from income tax for 3 years, initial 3 years. Then also, the Act makes it possible for startup to get grants and also loans from the central bank and from other financial institutions that gives loan to SMEs. So these are the incentives for the development of startups in Nigeria.
Okay, now for the layman out there watching that who might not understand what the income tax is and all that, can you just bring it more at home? And if you are exempted from that, what is it for the company?
Okay.
What does it imply?
Now, when you establish a company, you are supposed to be paying tax to the government.
Yes.
Now, for startup, because the government intends to encourage startup.
Yes.
Now they'll say that because it's a startup company and we want to encourage digital technology in Nigeria, so we will not charge you tax for this number of period, maybe 3 years. You'll be tax free. So this is basically like being tax free. Now, if a company like the capital gains we talk about, when they dispose property, you're supposed to pay tax to the government. The government is saying, the law is saying that you will not pay this tax. So they will not worry you with taxes so that you develop. So that is what it entails. These are the incentive as encouragement for people to engage in digital technology business.
Okay, so now as an individual, how do you feel this particular act will encourage Nigerians?
Now, with the incentive, they will encourage Nigeria and by going into that business. Like we earlier said that Nigeria is quite backward in terms backward in terms of digital technology.
Yeah.
So this will encourage Nigerians to go into that particular aspect of digital technology, and it's also helpful to Nigerians now and the country at large. Now, when this law has made provisions for startup, people will now engage in that business. And also there will be foreign investment because the foreign investors try to look at a favorable condition to invest. If they know that we establish this business, we'll be tax-free. Then they feel that, we can go into this business because we'll at least make up our profits. Before they start taxing us, we have stabilized. So foreign investment can also come to Nigeria. And this is going to create employment for Nigerians. So in that sense, it is beneficial to us, and our level of being backward in terms of digital technology will improve and will not be dependent on the foreign countries to be giving us digital technology. Rather, it will be produced here in Nigeria rather than importing digital technology into Nigeria.
Okay, so in your own view, were there any aspects you feel the Act didn't really address?
Well, the Act has tried a lot to address a number of issues, but I see one aspect which concerns the council which is regulating digital technology in Nigeria. Now, with regards to the council, they made the president the chairman, the vice president the vice chairman, and then the minister of information, if at all the president and the vice president are not there, will chair that council. And most persons in that council are members of the executive of the federal government. So I think instead of creating a council where you give people who are much more specialized in that area to actually manage that, the president who is so busy, the vice president who is so busy, and the minister will be the council. And the council is the policy maker of that particular institution. So giving them that power, it seems that they want that to fail, because by this person not having time to actually look at what is going on in digital technology and trying to bring out policies. Now, in that sense, it is likely not to succeed. So the Act should create it in such a way that separate individuals are maybe appointed who are well versed in digital technology to now be in that council, or maybe some other few persons who have that knowledge to create policies. So in that sense, the law and the regulatory body will be able to bring out policies that can benefit Nigerians rather than just making it as if the president. Now, looking at it in that way, can the president himself regulate himself? But when you delegate your duties to someone else and the person does not do well, sometimes you dissolve the council.
You're able to check.
Exactly. And the Act also made that mistake of now saying that the council will develop policies with the consent of the president. The president is the chairman. Now, how can you develop policies with your own consent? So it's actually not couched in that manner. That is where I think that the Act needs to be developed further. Because when somebody is doing something, you checkmate the person. But you put yourself there, how can you checkmate yourself? When somebody has to be blamed for the failure of that, you still blame it on the president. Instead of the president to be there and now say, you have done this wrong, I dissolve this council, bring in better persons. So that is one of the areas I think that can be done to bring in persons with better knowledge and digital technology to manage that particular sector.
Okay, actually this is always a platform where you make your suggestions can be heard. So you made mention of bringing in, can you specifically say, or you don't have those persons who we would want to recommend from which and which sector? Because when you're explicit is better. I don't know if...
Okay, in terms of bringing persons from some certain sector.
Yes, because you complained about the formation of the council.
Yes.
Yes. Now, I'm just asking that if you were in a position to suggest which and which aspects or sectors would you say, okay, this person from here should come here, or this special person should go there? Okay,
I was referring basically generally to people who are knowledgeable in digital technology.
Okay.
Now, persons who are knowledgeable in computer sciences, basically that is it.
Yeah.
Then you can bring other policy makers. Yes, maybe lawyers who can also be there to create to the enable.
But when you talk of stakeholders, I think those people operating in startups too are part of stakeholders. But for the council, did the law make mention of stakeholders being part of the council?
Okay, yes, the law made mention of it. About 4 persons can also be included beside the minister. Yes.
Okay.
So beside the minister, I think the Minister of Finance too is part of that.
Okay.
So beside the minister, so I'm looking at a situation where you distance them from the executive.
Yeah.
Now they can be reporting to the Minister of Information.
Yeah.
Then the Minister of Information to the President. It will create, or they can report directly to the President, whichever how the law wants to make it. But putting the President on the spot as being the policy maker there, and the President is very busy. It's not somebody who can go and start sitting on beside his executive meetings and doing other international functions, then coming to sit to make policies on that. So in that sense, it will not yield serious results. Yes.
Okay, it's getting very interesting here in the studio, but I would want to know, before we go, we want to know your general assessment. Yes, that's the part you feel the law didn't really address properly. Well, looking at, we want to know your general assessment of this particular startup, this act.
Yes, the Startup Act is a very good initiative.
Okay.
Yes, it's a good initiative in the sense that it is geared towards bringing something new in Nigeria. In the sense that most people who look at it want to trade in digital technologies. We want to go to Facebook and use it. We want to use Facebook and advertise. We don't think of creating a platform where people can. So these intend to bring a situation where we create. Now we can also create a platform for ourselves that is local, that people can also come there, not necessarily relying on WhatsApp or this Telegram or whatever.
Yeah.
We can also have ours. It also give room for crowdfunding. So in this way, we can also create softwares for that too. So it can create an avenue where we can also gather up cash to do certain things. So now the law is a very good one in the sense that it can provide employment for Nigerians. Yes. So it's a very good initiative and it should be encouraged. If it is implemented to the latter, it will be a very good avenue for Nigerians to also reduce the unemployment rate in the country.
Okay. I think we've all heard and we will do just that. But before we go, I would want to know your word for those who would want to go into startups, because you mentioned that it has to be a limited liability company, of which basically what we see around is SMEs. So I know people need encouragement to go into that. So what would be your word for them?
Now, people who want to go into startup, they can actually, it is very a good and a gray area. When a gray area comes, you know that much people are not there. The competition is less, and there is likelihood that you can make profits from it. So as far as you are able to think and bring out products which are digital, yes, it's talking about digital technology, innovative products or services or processes which people can actually access. So when you bring that, you know that you are going into a gray area, that profit making in that area is a little guarantee. Let me just put it that way, because you have less competition and it is a good area for people in Nigeria to look at. Okay. So it will provide an avenue for us to go into something new that can bring gains to us.
Okay, thank you so much for honoring our invitations and having you in our studios. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our viewer out there, word is enough for the wise. If you will agree with me that the success of any business is population, and I tell you, Nigeria has the population. Why don't we take advantage of this? Go into startup today and make a difference. Bring out your creativity, and I know you won't. Bring out your creativity, and I know it will be amazing at the results we will have. On that note, we've come to the end of Your Rights on Benway Television. Also, this program is open for sponsorship, for partnership. Do call the numbers on your screen. I remain your host, Winifred Yuso. Till same time next week when we come your way with another interesting and captivating episode of the program. Bye for now.
Welcome to the exciting world of